Thank you, Chantel, and are thrilled to welcome John Harrison to his first regular meeting with our board. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we are in the theater at the Chappaqua Library. We've got it's to and aft, as well as through the library itself. And why don't we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thanks, Bob. Chantel's got it on screen. We're on the screen. Although it's fun to watch it behind the curtain like a ghost.
Well, we're here now.
Okay. Da, 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 da. Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we wanted to check on the order of the agenda. We're very happy to have both Darren and Kyle of No Rocky Smith with us. And I think we agree it makes sense to move the financial aspect of the agenda forward before we turn to executive session for best utilization of their time. Brian, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, should we get started?
Sure.
Okay, so Darren, wanna?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for moving the agenda around to accommodate us. We wanted to just make sure we touch base, since this is really only the second time at this point that we've issued the treasurer's report. If you've noticed, we did make a couple of changes throughout the report and added a narrative page on there. So just to give you somewhat of an executive summary of your status at this point in time. So we can certainly, if you had feedback on that tonight or at another time, send it to us so we can kind of get this template down for your liking. But I will just walk through the initial page with you. If you have any questions. So what we're reporting on is this is the Treasurer's report for April 2023. And within the packet, you do see a schedule that shows your year-to-date budget to actual operating activity. So that would be from July 2022 through April 2023. The question came up last time around about collecting your revenue and from the district. So at this point, you have 100% collected for this time period, and you actually have an excess of $56,000 from other sources from planned revenue through April of 2023. And from an expense side, in totality, you've expended 81% of your total annual budget. So you're really right on target on an overall expense viewpoint for spending for what you had budgeted for. On the balance sheet side, we do have a summary of your balance sheet on page 4 to help you see the different categories of it. But right now, your total assets are $2.3 million. I think what we'll do in the future is just show a comparison of what those total assets were for maybe the 1 year time period prior. So you can keep an eye on the movement of your assets, from year to year, I should say, over a month-to-month basis from 1 year to the next. And so we just made a couple of quick comments because I know we are, have to look at a few other things while I put this treasurer's report together for you. At the time we prepared this, we did not have a listing of the checks prepared for the district, and I believe those have been pulled together since we submitted this. And we reviewed the library's bank statements and the bank reconciliations for April 2023. And so we had no exceptions noted there. You do have money market account and a capital accounts that have transactions recorded, but the reconciliations were not complete at that point in time. So we will review those outstanding bank reconciliations once they're prepared. So we did not have a summary narrative page in our first transmission to you, so we added this piece. We hope it's helpful as an executive summary to you. And then the next 2 pages really outline, your the detail of some of the general numbers we just provided to you. So from a revenue standpoint, you can see your total revenues versus your adopted budget and year to date, where you're ahead of schedule. And then on the expense side by code, we have your expenses with your adopted budget, modified budget, and year to date columns, along with your over or under for that time period. And we include a percent of the budget expended. So although these numbers in that far right column bounce around a little bit from line item to line item, you're really at 81% of your total expenditures. So, with 2 months left in the reporting year. So you're in good shape in terms of what your budget to actual looks like on an overall basis. We did highlight a couple of expense codes to keep an eye on for various reasons, just for either its timing of when items are paid, and they should level out over the time period, or maybe there's another reason that might come to our attention as we see how the year ends up on each item. So the summary of your balance sheet, I mentioned the 2.3 million, 2.1. Let's see, did we have that number correct?
Yeah, the 2.3 is this current year. So on the right-hand side
Oh,
is
right.
your
I'm
current
sorry.
year. And then we put
I
the
thought I missed it.
comparison to last year in there for you. So
Yeah.
every month you'll be able to see from last year, this timing, to this year, kind of where you stand back and forth.
Right, so on page 4, there's your summary. The far right column is your 2.3 in assets, and it's broken out by your bank accounts there and your other current asset types. And then you can see it from a fund balance perspective, how your total fund balance rolls up to the 2.3. So strong numbers, and you're in good shape from a budget to actual standpoint as you head towards year end.
Great, that's what we like to hear.
Thank you. The summary page, I think, is great.
Helpful, yeah.
We'll review if there's any additional items we want to highlight, and we'll review the recommendations on the coding transfers as well to get things tightened up. So best practice on your end.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So that summary page, there's a couple of tweaks we might add to it, but if there's anything on there that we think would help you out in the future from a standard reporting standpoint, just let us know. But the follow-up items with the outstanding bank recs, we will follow up on those and report back to that we reviewed them and that they're, that there's no issues with them.
So the summary page is great. It's helpful for people following along and get a snapshot.
Okay, excellent. Great. You have any other questions at this point in time?
Any questions from the board? Okay,
I don't have any questions.
are we in approval of the financial statements as presented? Any concerns? Okay,
Should I make the motion?
please.
I move that the board approves the final. Wait, no, we have to approve the April 2023 financials, correct? I move that the board approves the April 2023 financials.
I second the motion. Sorry, no.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye? No? Okay. Aye. And not in favor? Or abstain? Okay. Did you want to discuss your abstention? Okay. If acceptable, I think we'll allow Naraki Smith to sign off and we'll go back to the agenda format and return in order to the budget presentation,
Sure.
unless you want them to be present for that.
No,
I don't think they need to
unless they feel a need to be present, no.
I don't think so either. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. Much
Okay,
appreciated.
thank you so much. Have a
Really
nice-
like the
Thank
new
you.
format.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your feedback and have a great night.
Thank you.
You too.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Okay. Oh, I have Joan. Okay,
Yeah.
then. Our secretary usually recommends that we enter executive session. Do you want to, as acting secretary, do
Absolutely.
that?
I make a motion
God, 7:15.
that the board enter executive session at 7:15. Should I say for the purpose of? Okay, for the purpose of updates from our security vendor and the mid-year performance appraisal of the library director.
See you in seconds. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Okay. Are we back on recording? I'll lose it.
You've been recording.
John's.
You're good.
Okay, we're good?
Mhm.
Okay, our apologies for the length of time taken. We do have a motion we'd like to make as we have now exited executive session. I move that the board approve the proposed security invoice, which is indicated as proposal 3600 dated June 9th, 2023. For repairs to the existing system by our security advisor Stratagem Security for $13,829.57. Our library director pointed out that there is a feature of this proposal that could be negated by a subsequent proposal. So obviously we are going to have double coverage. And there could be some savings from this proposal. But at this point in time, I'm asking the board to approve $13,829.57. Do I have a second? Thank you, Pam. Any discussion? Further discussion, I should say. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, we will return to, actually, shall we jump to our presentation from the department head? Do you want to go ahead and make introductions?
Sure, yeah. As part of the director's report, we're highlighting the contributions of many of our department heads, one at a time. At this meeting, we've invited the adult programs coordinator, Joan Kuhn, to tell us a little bit about her department and what she's got coming up with adult programs. So Joan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
If we ask you, so you're on the video.
Okay, whatever you want, right here.
Okay, got it. Oh, good. Thank you very much. And again, apologies for the.
Well, hi, everyone, and hi, John, John,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Hi,
Good.
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I know everybody else. Okay,
Thank you.
please take one, guys. Okay, so. So my name is Joan Cute and I'm the program coordinator and I've been that for more years than I can tell you. So I just wanted to highlight what I do. Basically, what I do is I generate programs, generate ideas and topics, and then I organize them. And then I introduce speakers at the programs that I've organized, and I facilitate all the programs, and these are only the adult programs for the library. Then I have setups for the programs and attend them, whether they are in-person programs or live programs. I keep all statistics and I generate a year-end report. I send out all publicities. I coordinate with all local community organizations, such as the police, Park and Rec, town, the town administration, the Garden Club, the Newcastle Historical Society, and the Foreign Policy Discussion Group. I coordinate also with local business people and in case we need them for programs. I work with publishers and publicists to bring these programs here. I coordinate with Scattered Books when we get these programs because many times I will need them. I work with the Friends of the Chappaqua Library extensively, as you will see from the programs that we passed. Okay. I videotape programs and the program is usually the library news, and I help videotape the programs that we have in person. I Xerox all flyers, and the purpose of most of these programs is to highlight the Chappaqua Library book collection. So that's pretty much my responsibilities. The types of programs I have like two kinds of programs. Ongoing programs. The ongoing programs you'll see is the Chinese Conversation Club, which meets every Tuesday. Book clubs, we have 5 book clubs, which is probably the most in the county. We have an art series, a writing work series, a bridge club, which just started last Saturday, which was on a hiatus because of COVID. A foreign policy discussion group, and I co-sponsor with Chappaqua, with Westchester Library around the county. Because with the Zoom programs, most of our programs are now online because we get better audiences and it works better for everybody. So we all coordinate together and we have to pay them. And so it works out better for each library. In the summer, I'm just going to jump into the summer, we're having much lighter series of programs. I have an author talk about Norman Rockwell's models. I'm doing a lecture on Raptors for Rookies, a bird program. We're starting ukulele lessons, and we'll be doing trivia days and a film series. And we start the outdoor summer series on June 23rd. So this is a very big program series that we started last year. We did 6 in the series. It was very successful. It is, we line up, we had 6 different groups, and the Friends of the Chappaqua Library volunteered to give us complimentary wine and cheese and snacks, and they came and it was wonderful. Everybody was thrilled. It was a win-win, and we got a lot of pressure to increase it, so we're doing 8 now, starting June 23rd and ending August 11th. It's at 7 o'clock. We set up the outdoors here with tables, tablecloth, candles. We have 2 custodians come, and this area right behind me becomes the stage, and we have special lights, and it works, and it's lovely. And in the fall, we're going to have, so the fall, I'll start my regular programming, all that. And the groups I work with, I think I mentioned, but I wanted to mention the staff from the Chappaqua Library that I work with. I work with Larry D'Amico, who is the graphic artist and a curator. And Larry knows not only art, but he knows music, and I don't. And he helped me put this together, the summer music series. I work with Denise Minson, who is now head of adult services. She does all the social media advertisement. Rebecca Rogan, who used to be head of adult services, she does all the websites. the Chappaqua entries. Sally does she does the newspapers. She advertises all the newspapers, the hard copies. Tal puts it on our weekly website with all highlighting all the programs. I work with Carrie Crams. Carrie is the AV person for the town, and she videotapes the programs. And I worked with the Calavito boys, who many of you know live in town, and they help set it. And mostly I work with that lady over there, Chantel, who keeps me honest. Gets everything I need. And that pretty much sums up programs. Any questions?
Yeah, you spoke about how helpful Larry is in
Yeah.
terms of ideas for groups and music, et cetera.
Yeah.
Where do you get your other ideas for programming?
Actually, it's very interesting. Here's an example. Sunday morning with Jane Pauley. I listen to that every single week. She had on something, I don't know if anybody remembers it. It was about UFOs. No, it was President Clinton was there and they were talking about UFOs. And then she had on this Harvard professor from talking about UFOs. And they said his name and they said where he was from. Called him up. He was here. I get programs from reading the Times. I get it from, I work with a lot of, what do you call it? Alumni groups. Just living, I get a lot of ideas from publishers. They, send me stuff and a lot of authors come and local authors come and they want to highlight their books. If they live in Chappaqua, I will definitely have them. If they live outside of Chappaqua, then I have some issues I have to figure it out. But if they're a Chappaqua resident, they're in. Lectures, I look through what New York Historical is doing. We're going to be doing programs with the New York Historical Society too. I forgot to include them. But like just any of the groups want to do programs, and it's just what happens. What I see is coming around when the Westchester Library System listserv, which lists what other libraries are doing. So we all share and we talk, and that's how I get programs.
Joey, I didn't hear you mention the opera. Did you mention the opera?
Forgot that, and I know I have it here. I know.
That was is that still?
Okay.
ongoing, or-
Yes, it's starting again, and I have it in the fall programs, which I didn't talk about. So the fall programs are going to be, I have author talks, I have Woods and Water, which is a hiking program of the area around here. I'm going to have Esmeralda San Diego, who wrote a new book. I'm having the opera series again, starting on Mondays at 2:00. I'm having a program on Frida Kahlo, and we're starting the New York Historical Society. Thank you.
What are you going to be doing with the New York?
We're doing a program on, I don't remember, but we've organized it for November and I even have the date,
Great.
but I don't remember.
Okay, so new question.
Yes.
How do you filter through all of this and select?
You know what I do? If I like it, I figured other people will like it. I moved to Chappaqua in 71, so I feel like I have a resident who really knows this community. And now I have my niece and nephew living here, so I know from the younger community.
Do you get suggestions from patrons
I
as well?
From your sister, we've had her sister 3 times. Her sister's Evelyn Farkas, an authority of Russia. And she's come to the foreign policy discussion group twice, and we had a special program, just her alone, talking about Russia. So, yes, what, I'm sorry.
Do you have like a suggestion box or a place that patrons?
They usually, when I do a program, I'm always here. I go to all the programs. And when I'm here, people always come up to me and give me suggestions. That's why this job takes a lot of time that you wouldn't think. You have to be present. You just have to be here at every program and listen to what people want, and they will tell you.
So if you're not here, if people can't come to your program, is there a place for them to reach out to you to let you know programs?
People-
that you're
Some people call me, but there is no other organized way. They'll usually tell something to the reference department
Mm-hmm.
and they filter it back to me,
Okay.
if I'm not here. But most of the programs I will say I get when I have programs, people are here, oh, I know somebody who knows somebody, and I follow up. Follow up is probably the most important thing that I do besides being here. Follow up is what I spend most of my time doing, emailing and calling.
I know we used to do a lot with Cornell, right? Do we?
Not, well, the Garden Club did with Cornell Cooperative Extension. I work mostly with Yale University and NYU.
The Happiness Project.
The Happiness Project.
Not here, we had a sellout crowd.
Right, not to mention I work with Chappaqua, Chappaqua Performing Arts Center. Right, we had, I work with, as I said, Yale alumni. So we had Lori Santos, who was the most popular teacher in Yale University. She did a program on the Happiness Project. So we had a lot of sellouts. And of course, we had the Clintons living here. So I had President Clinton once and Secretary Clinton twice. And I was also able through other sources to get represented, Congressman Jamie Raskin. These were all sellout programs.
So do you repeat programs?
Not really. I have a series, I have it, but not really very comfortable.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Like, for example, Lori Santos, like, would
She said she can come back,
Okay.
so I probably will have her come back. I will have I keep everybody's contact information. So I will, she's been now there's a DVD I noticed for her program, and we have it here at the library. So, it would highlight our collection. She's a lovely woman and very easy.
No,
Have you met her?
no, but I listened to her,
She's unbelievable.
podcast and all of it, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm asking, like, would you do repeat things?
Yes, I mean, I would.
Successful. things.
Yeah, she's very successful. I will say what's interesting is I had the Harvard professor, I can't remember his name, who talked about UFOs. It wasn't as popular as I thought. Just thought I'd mention that.
Okay.
I thought, my God, everybody wants to know about, the name of his book was We're Not Alone. And I thought, oh my God, everybody would be coming. No, it wasn't as important. People were more interested in being happy than knowing about UFOs.
Right. Well, definitely.
Yeah, yes, that is a good thing. So,
Maybe with our new website, Bob, we could have a specific programming, click on
We
this.
certainly allow book title requests or subject requests to come
yeah,
in.
that would be
So-
helpful.
Yeah, if it would aid you in the development of programs, we will build that in.
Yeah. It's just, each program is not every program that I want, the whole thing comes to fruition. It doesn't. Each program is unique. Let's put it that way. Some work, some don't.
Well, if you're not out there innovating and trying.
That's right. Then you have nothing to lose. You've got to try everything.
That's great.
Jen, are we taking questions from attendees? Because one was submitted, I could read it out.
Yes. I can't read it. It's too far away from me.
Joan, I'll read it. The question is, would grants, this is really a funding question, would grants from organizations like Arts Westchester or New York State or foundations be helpful for more programs? Are there any programs that you can't do because of budget constraints? And what is on your wish list for new programs? Can the Friends sponsor more programs? And basically comes down to.
So this is from our former trustee Dana Wu.
Oh, we do sponsor some programs with Arts Westchester. In fact, there's one on the books right now, creative. It's an art program, so I was going to ask Larry to help me with that. Because we did have a creative arts program here before, which was really fun. It was a series of classes, I think maybe about 4. And we've done a few of them. So Arts Westchester we've used, and the New York Council for the Humanities, the grants. And a lot of the people that come petitioning for programs here come with the grant already done, and all we have to do is co-sponsor it. They're just looking for a venue. So we are the venue. So that's really then it's an easy program. The budget that I have, I think I might have mentioned to you, I think I need more money because this art series is costing a lot of money. And not the art series, the music series is costing a lot of money. And I've already figured out what music I'm having for the holiday season. And that's a big chunk of money too. So I try to think of all these, the things that I'm going to have a lot
On
of
our screen.
big expense. So.
And I said our screen.
That's not coming out of programming.
No,
is
it's
it?
not.
Oh, God.
Just a
No,
bunch
that's
of things.
capital.
No, I just do. And by this, this has been a big issue. I'm not having a film series. I'm having is an online film series. We used to have, I'm very affected by the fact we can't do a film now. We would usually have film series, so this is a loss to all the departments in the
So you'd like to bring that back?
yeah.
Okay,
That film series used to get like 60 people on Friday nights.
okay.
So, well, maybe it'll be different now, I'm not sure. But I can't, or I've already lost the Chinese film series that I was supposed to have. Because they don't want to see it on a jumbo board, they wanted to see it on the big screen.
Yeah.
So that went to Scarsdale. So just so you know. But it's disappointing. Yeah, it was,
Well, thank you.
okay?
This was excellent. Thank you so much. Yeah.
I like doing this because I've done it many times, different boards. It was nice to meet you, nice to meet you,
for the
John.
community there.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Dana, thanks you for all that you do.
Dana, thank you for all. We all do.
Thank you, Dana. Enjoy the rest of the meeting.
Thank you so
Enjoy the
much.
home.
Okay. Okay, with our 18th agenda amendment, why don't I turn to friends? So we can let you speak your piece and go home to family. And we're,
Right here from the audience.
I,
I'm not speaking, it's not a presentation like Joan.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, from right here. Oh, thank you, Joan. So for those at home, and I'm Kristen Acasella, I'm the Vice President of the Friends of the Chappaqua Library. And it's very kind of the trustees to invite me here this evening to just say thank you to all of you and to the library for hosting us for the Friends Annual Used Book Sale that was held in May. It was our most successful to date. We raised over $23,000, which we can't wait to spend on wonderful things for the library. So we are just so thankful to the whole community for coming out and supporting it, whether they dropped off books, thousands and thousands of books, all the volunteers who came out to sort everything. It is just phenomenal to see this space where we are right now transform that week from being an empty room to being an amazing bookstore and then being empty again, all in the span of 7 days. And we've also now made a couple of great nonprofit partners who come in on the free day, on the last day, who help with the biggest conundrum of hosting a used book sale, which is what do you do with the books that don't get sold at the end? And we've found a lot of local nonprofits who come in and get things for hospitals or children's organizations. They really want the kids stuff the most. But then we also have found a couple of international nonprofits who have come and taken literally everything off of our hands, which has just been a phenomenal way to end the book sale. It feels good that everything is going into someone else's hands and nothing is getting recycled. So we're just so happy to be able to have this annual event, and thank you to the library for letting us have the space.
thank you.
Thank you.
Very much appreciated. We think that all the work by the board, as well as, you know, so many volunteers who come year after year after year.
Because they know that it is such a great sale.
Yeah, well, so the last thing I'll say about it is just that we are so grateful to the volunteers who come and help organize the books. And so anyone who is interested in helping us plan the sale for the next year and the years to come, we are actively seeking out more community members to help us
Great.
with the
Okay.
planning of the sale, not just the week of, but helping us execute it from start to finish.
Mhm.
So anyone who's interested in helping with the book sale, we would love your support.
Thank you, Kristen. That's excellent. Okay. We'll return to our regular scheduled programming. Okay, so we're back to board administration. We have two sets of minutes for approval. The minutes of our May 8th, 2023 regular meeting, as well as the minutes of our June 1st, 2023 special meeting. Are those approved? Do we have any concerns with the minutes as presented? Okay, we'll move forward. And then in welcoming John Harrison, we've asked him to step into the role of secretary. So we've presented a revised, amended slate of officers, including John Harrison as secretary. So with that, I move that the board approve the revised slate of officers, appointing John Harrison as secretary. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. And Cook, thank you very much. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Unanimous? Great. Okay, you're welcome again, John.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, and we also presented, and for this, I'll look for some discussion by the board. We've laid out the various committees for the board, and I hope to generate some discussion as to how we should reconfigure those in view of the addition of John, as well as in anticipation of George joining us in July. So in this exhibit, you'll see building and grounds is myself and Pam Moskowitz. I feel like that's working well. Then we have finance. Brian's done a great job in leading that. We thought as a math career math instructor that George
Suggested that.
would be a great addition to that. So we'll ask you to man the reins for another month, Brian. Policy and bylaws, Pam Moskowitz has done a great job. I wanted to, John's voiced some interest in things like governance, et cetera. It seemed to me to be a logical addition to add you to that committee. Is that acceptable?
Sure, yes.
Then we have the communications committee, and we've talked about this. This is an ad hoc committee. Dana Wu had started to get this off the ground. I don't feel like we really got our legs under a mission for this committee. I would like to continue it and let's see if we can make it useful to the library. And I was going to ask George when he joins us in July to head that up. And in the meantime, Brian will continue to head that up if acceptable. Let's see, and then personnel, when we meet to review bylaw changes, one of the changes I wanted to propose is that we make the personnel committee, like many other libraries, a standing committee. So that would be in addition to the first three listed. And I was going to ask John to head up that committee together with Pam Moskowitz, who I think brings excellent talents to that area of focus as well. The only thing I will put on the table for all of your consideration is this, the grouping ends up coming down to, there are many committees with the two of you, and I don't have John with Brian. So, share your thoughts. So, you know, if you think this makes sense, if we should make changes, I'm open to your opinions, certainly. So I think it makes sense. The only thing that makes me uncomfortable is I'm not getting sort of the mix of our board members that would be,
Well, it's something that can change every year too.
that's true. Good point.
The other thing is the committee can ask other trustees to do work. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
the two people that are showing.
And
up.
community members.
Committee, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And then as Liz and I had discussed in prior meetings, the Safety and Security Committee is an ad hoc committee that was created because of some concerns that we had at a point in time relative to, in particular, our camera system, which has been fully replaced at this point in time. There's certainly ongoing work. Safety and security will remain a major area of focus for us with the library, but its mission is already, you know, as you'll see with the document provided, already included in building and grounds. And I think to Liz's original suggestion, we can now discharge that committee and have its mission again returned to building and grounds.
So you are officially discharging, correct?
Yes, I wanted to.
Because president, you just need to state that, right?
I was going to suggest that as a motion that we weigh into, you know, per the agenda, we've got three major changes really. John joining the Policy and Bylaws Committee, John chairing the Personnel Committee, and becoming a member of the Communications Committee, and then discharging the Safety and Security Committee. So do I have a second for that?
I'll second it.
I'm seconding. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Okay. I think we've addressed all, oh, no, we have not addressed the most important finance issue in that you are presenting the final budget for our approval, correct?
That's right. The only change to what was presented previously is that I've adjusted the materials budget by $4,000 on the books line. And I took a little bit of that out of our periodicals line. Sorry, questions? No,
I've just never sat at a table where we undid what the public voted on so quickly after the vote. That's all.
okay,
No, there's small change of $4,000.
there's a case.
For the inflation in book prices, that's all. The
Yeah.
overall budget isn't changing.
It's the hardcover, nonfiction prices have gone up.
We're adding 4,000, so that's.
No, we're not adding.
We're balancing it against periodicals and and recordings. So we're not actually increasing the budget. The total expenditures for the year, we're just within the materials budget, reallocating funds so that they all total the same amount. But the amount was $4,000 for books because the price of hardcover nonfiction in particular, but books broadly, are finally going up after really decades of keeping at pace with or under inflation. And also the processing costs of books from our vendor are going up. So that's cutting into the book budget if the cost of processing goes up.
And what periodicals are we cutting?
So I balanced it against periodicals by only a small amount, $700 or so. And that was based on our periodicals library assistant giving me the budget for next year and me finding, oh, we can spare this amount. So it's not targeting any particular periodicals for cutting. It's just balancing it against a better known dollar amount for periodicals. And the rest out of recordings, partly because I didn't want to balance it against online resources, which are increasingly popular. And as you'll see later on in my director's report, I anticipate additional expenses coming from the Westchester Library System. Meanwhile, we know that recordings are circulating less, particularly compact disc audiobooks. Seats, cars don't come with a CD player anymore. So there's more available through streaming options. So recording seemed like the best place to balance the book increase against. The other change to what was previously shown to the public is not a change in dollar amounts at all, but this version of the budget includes the advanced payments from the school district for the months of July, August, and September. It looks like, yeah, that's the final tab in this version of the budget. Those are the only two changes from what was previously adopted by the board for public inspection.
Okay, that's a great summary. Thank you. Okay, Brian, do you want to make the motion relative to that
Sure.
budget?
I would make the motion, I move that the board approve the final 2023-2024 budget as presented.
I'll second the motion. All in favor?
Discussion.
Yes, do you have further discussion?
Yeah, do we really need to vote to I mean, it seems to me that over $4,000, we would not change the original budget as the public approved it, that would not amount
So
to.
the public doesn't approve the budget, the board does. So first of all, I would say that the board hasn't adopted this or a prior budget. In the previous board meetings, we made it clear that I was asking you to adopt the proposed budget for the public to see in order to vote on the tax levy. So what the public voted on was the tax levy increase of a specific dollar amount. Now that we know that dollar amount has been approved, now I would be asking you to adopt a budget anyway. That's what this motion is really about, and you're not approving the changes so much as adopting.
It's a different process than the one this library has followed previously and not one I support. That's okay.
Okay, but you still do need to adopt the budget, whether it's at this meeting or the July meeting. That's our deadline to adopt a budget. And you will find that one hasn't been adopted at the previous meetings.
Well said. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Not in favor? Those not in favor? And abstaining. Okay. Great. Okay. For my president's report, in addition to having sworn in John Harrison as trustee at our June 1st, 2023 meeting as the big news, we have begun the onboarding process, which should be lengthy. There's a lot to learn. So John's been provided with, I would say about 90% of what 95% of what we view as the onboarding materials electronically. He's been generous in allowing that electronically. And we are also working with Bob and Chantel to put together a physical aggregation of documents for both John and George and for us to maintain on a go-forward basis. The last piece would be to thank Liz Hampson for her 5 years of service, but I think we'll do that at the end of the meeting. And perhaps she'll say a few words at that point. Okay. Bob, can you take us through your director's report?
Sure, I'll start with some operational developments. For those who drove to the library today, you'll see that the parking lot resurfacing project went off without a hitch. It came in a couple of days under projection. And children, I overheard children outside today talking about how nice the parking lot was. So if even kids noticed, it must be a good parking lot project.
Brian said we could eat off it.
It looks pretty good.
I wouldn't recommend it, although I've seen the crows do that. There was an update to our Evergreen ILS in May. Evergreen is the open source integrated library system. That's what I mean by ILS. And the Aspen upgrade dropped. The most obvious change will be the Ferberized search results. That's a technical cataloging librarian's term. It stands for functional requirements for bibliographic records. And what that means is the end result, you'll see that they're grouping all of the book editions, all of the print editions of a title into one visible chunk, rather than leading with the oldest edition or the newest edition, because in both of those cases presents finding problems on the user side. So they're grouped in one chunk, and then you have to click into the chunk once you know, yeah, I'm actually looking for the print edition, versus grouping all of the ebook editions, or all of the audiobook editions, or all of the film adaptations, or all of the music score from the film adaptations under various different visual things. Apparently, according to WLS, they got 400 patron responses in the first few days. That includes some complaints, and they're soliciting requests to solve known glitches. According to Chappaqua library staff, the glitch response has been really rapid, and they're already seeing improvements to the new Ferberized catalog based on our staff's feedback. Less obvious improvement would be a lot of ADA accessibility features in the new version of the catalog, and did you mean search results on the back end? So in other words,
That's
if you
great.
if you type in an author's name wrong, which used to see all the time, people would hear about an author
Mhm.
on NPR or wherever they're listening to an author interview, and then they wouldn't know how to spell the name, or they would think that Terry was married, things like that. So the did you mean function should really help our patrons and our librarians. Another operational development was, well, this is a new one. So this is a proposal that I would make, or really a request that I would make to this library board, would be to approve a change in our operating hours. I would request that we open a little bit later on Thursday mornings at 10 a.m. to accommodate staff meetings. Once a month, we could have an all-staff meeting. So 12 times a year, this staff would hear from their director and get to know me a little bit better, and I'd be able to field the kinds of questions and concerns that they would have in an all-staff meeting. Once a month, our departments would all meet at a designated time. The benefit of that is that they wouldn't have to be staffing their departments for public service from other personnel departments. And when I proposed this idea in a department head meeting, there was an actual squeal of delight from the acting adult services head, department head, who thought it was such a great idea. Not my idea. I wish I could claim credit for that. But that leaves 2 or even 3 more Thursdays per month. And we have a lot of staff development training needs within the staff at the library. So we could dedicate 50 minutes, 100 to 150 minutes per month to ongoing staff development initiatives. So in support of that idea, I did attach a schedule of training for the first 2 months. And you'll see that we would include such things as a full facility tour of the building's safety features, a demonstration of exits, fire extinguishers, alarm systems, and what to do when you find a leak or smell gas, or when the lights go out. In other words, a lot of staff are coming to me not knowing how to do these things. And I can only say I'm the new director for so long, where I actually have to start showing people how to respond in these scenarios. Another example would be de-escalation training basics with a known online facilitator. Google Calendars. Most of this library staff are not using Google Calendars effectively, and they're not sharing their calendars with each other in a way that would lead to effective multi-person meeting times. And Q&A session, just for example, with outside security forces such as our local police on how to behave in certain scenarios that are routine for libraries, or that would be a worst case scenario as well. So That is a proposal. I don't know if you wanted to make a motion.
I had a
Meeting,
question.
please,
Well,
please.
I-
Do you want me to make a motion first?
I don't
and
know if
then-
we're making a motion or not. Are we making one? Then I'll wait for it and then do the question.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I can't move. I'm merely a director.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we reduce the operating hours of this library, which has the greatest operating hours of any library I was able to find through websites, et cetera, by 1 hour per week with a 10 a.m. opening on Thursdays of every week. Is that correct?
That's
In
right.
terms of what you're seeking?
It is.
Okay, do we have a second? And we'll turn to discussion. Pam's second, thank you. Okay.
So I guess, I mean, well, I have one question, Bob. So there are only certain titles that are supposed to be supervisory and know how to do things like the things you're talking about wanting to train people on.
Yeah,
Are all of your supervisors trained on those things? Because my understanding is that we handed you a running library where everyone is sufficiently trained and up to speed on the things that they're required to know. And I've never heard from a prior director that my public service hours need to be impacted negatively in order that the library is safe and well-trained. So I like to come here at 9 in the morning. I like to know that there is a door that is always open in our town.
Mhm.
Our location is one that is important for this community for several reasons. So that 9 o'clock start is something that even when department meetings ran over, if you started a little bit earlier, we would open the lobby typically at 9. So it's two questions. One, what has the public said about it? And two, are we at risk right now? Do we not have the people who need to be trained sufficiently trained? Because Google Calendars is one thing, but you mentioned some serious things that I want to make sure that we're not telling the public inaccuracies.
So I haven't assessed whether every department head has been trained across every topic, but the list of topics that I've shared for this meeting and past meetings was worked on by all of the department heads, including identifying in many cases trainings that they've requested for themselves and their staff. So I wouldn't say for any individual topic or person that I know where their needs are. I would say that these are the staff needs, very well presented in the list of topics. The other thing that I would say is that staff development doesn't need to just be, for example, supervisory training, emergency response training. Everyone at every organizational level can take these things because today's library page could be tomorrow's library director based on the trainings that they receive. It's staff development opportunity, not just assigned duty training.
Right, but most of those would be things where they would be signing up in advance. And it would be offered at a particular time when they need to be available, not at our leisure, because we would never have enough adult service librarians that need the same training on the same day. So we go into the system. So it really does become a handful of trainings, and what you're saying is you don't know who has them and who doesn't, but you're asking us to reduce the public service hours today.
I think this is a great suggestion. I'm not going to be prepared to make any sort of decision tonight because I think we have a lot of homework to do to research this plan. So I would say this is a good starting point, but
I agree.
we'll
I think it's a
lot of
really,
questions that we're not going to answer
I think
tonight.
it's a really proactive list. And first of all, we've been talking about this for good 4+ months. And really waiting on you to come forward with a list of suggested trainings. The one I'm most enthusiastic about, because we have not been conducting annual reviews of personnel, is the training in that regard, both for giving reviews as well as receiving. And moving forward in performance evaluation. So I'm very happy that's on the list.
And Liz, there was another part of your question. I think it
If
had
the
to do
public
with,
had commented, if you had solicited input from all the people that show up at 9 o'clock, how they feel about delaying their start here.
and my answer to that question is no, I did not ask.
We could put something on our website that this is a considered change.
For us, it could be a
And-
partial opening where people can still
I
use
think it
the
would be
building.
good for us at the table to see who has training and who doesn't, because I think there's a lack of an appreciation for how well trained our staff are. And I appreciate that it's easier if you take a public service hour away and make it a staff hour. That's definitely easier to accomplish a lot of training. But it is a change, and we pride ourselves on having the most public service hours in Westchester, and we do have people who come here whose libraries don't open as early. So we are taking something away, and we have to make sure that it's justified and that we are not just making it easier, because we've always been a publicly open building and we've always managed. So that's the trade-off.
And we can also share the survey data on other libraries, et cetera.
Okay,
Great. So we'll agree to table that motion. Agreed? Okay.
Continue.
but I will continue with my director's report
Thank you.
and talk about some projects. The video theater that we're sitting in, the request for proposals to make much needed upgrades and repairs. That went out on June 2nd to 7 firms. That 5 were firms that I identified in Westchester County using a NAICS search of Reference USA business to business database. And plus 1 in Connecticut that was a recommended vendor that serves a lot of public agencies in this area. And 1 in Queens that just happened to send me a piece of direct mail at a moment that we were looking for AV upgrades. So those went out June 16th, which is this Friday. There's a walkthrough and Q&A scheduled for any of those firms that are interested, that would like to see a demonstration of the space. Written proposals are finally due July 6th. And in a separate project, we had a stakeholders meeting with the KG&D architects regarding our exterior and courtyard projects. A summary of that meeting was attached to my director's report. I had a sales demo from 911 Cellular between them and our Stratagem security consultants to demonstrate a really innovative, and in my thinking, internal security communication system, which is a set of keyboard commands that would alert staff on the networks to security needs by other staff. So the same system would also support calling police, fire, and other emergency services. And there's wearable lanyards and support for mobile devices as well. So we're waiting on the pricing for that, but it is a really innovative solution to specific needs that staff here have raised with me. That sales demo went very well. And the library market project, that's our new website. That initial launch meeting was held May 17th. And summarized at my June 1st meeting, there was a follow-up meeting that I was not able to attend, but it's summarized in the reports from Tom Wen, who is the project lead for that. I know there have been 2 more meetings since then. There was a WLS meeting of the Public Libraries Directors Association. I call it a WLS meeting, but it's the WLS's PLDA group. A lot of news from that, which I will share a briefing of now. The New York Senate passed an anti-censorship bill that really pertains more to school libraries, but it's intended to prevent censorship of school library materials and to guarantee student access to diverse reading materials. It's awaiting support from the assembly. It's just worth pointing out that in a moment in our nation's history when other states have legislators who are circulating petitions to limit access to certain titles. Here we have a state senate that is working to guarantee student access to materials. There was a major service disruption to WLS's ISP, the Aspen upgrade that I discussed, just a couple of days after the upgrade, but it was completely unrelated to the upgrade. It was actually a digging event that cut off a fiber cable from their ISP. So it took connection to the Aspen server down. It shut down our library's entire network system-wide for one day. The White Plains Library was having some trouble with HarperCollins ebook licensing model. And that's what I was saying may affect our need to pay more in the long run for the same amount of electronic resources. Now, if you're familiar with ebook licensing, there are currently 4 major models. The biggest one by far that covers 80% of our ebook licensing is the Overdrive Libby licensing model. And it's a one book, one license, usually for a couple of years. And that is not the problem. I mean, there's problems to it. All of these licensing models wind up prioritizing hot new bestsellers, right? Because if it's a 2-year license, you've got to buy it again 2 years down the road, and no one's spending their precious, budget funds. I won't say no one, but you're not devoting as much to last year's popular titles. The more problematic one that White Plains is suffering from is actually the next model that HarperCollins uses with Overdrive. And that is, I need to refresh my thoughts on that. That is a limited number of checkouts. That's the problem. It's about, I think it's 20 to 30 checkouts. And so it lasts more than a couple of years. But what White Plains is finding is that in trying to use it to build a backlist, the long tail of ebooks availability, their own patrons often don't get to use any of those 20 checkouts because it's a shared system. And every library director at this meeting heard White Plains' position and said, we really need to find for this model a way that we're paying for our patrons' own use, or that we're at least spending more collected funds in a shared setting. So that may affect our pricing down the line, but it may not come out of the materials budget if it's coming out of our WLS dues. It's an unknown at this point. Just something to be aware of down the line. I did attend Publishers Weekly's first since COVID, US Book Show for one day on May 24th. And I saw really a list of star authors and in one case, a superstar publisher, Sarah Jessica Parker, talk about books that they have coming out in the next 3 to 6 months. I was asked to begin reporting on theater utilization by outside groups. For the month of May, we had 2 condo associations. We had the Friends of the Library book sale. And we had the Amanda Wesner Piano School had its recital here. This was not a public program. This was a recital for their students, for an audience of the students' parents. But it was a really lovely use of this space to have a piano recital on.
So, did you waive the requirement for insurance?
No.
So they submitted, they had the insurance. Okay, that's great. I think it has to be public if it's here, just
Yes, but it wasn't a public library program that we were promoting.
But they wouldn't let anyone in the room.
Correct, yes. Yeah, it would. When I continue to report on theater utilization by outside groups, the answer to those questions will always be yes.
Excellent.
They provided the certificate of insurance and paid the
Thank
fee.
you.
And they understood that anyone could attend their program.
I really appreciate that, as having not had this conversation with you as a director before. Thank you.
Certainly. Personal updates, we had our library page, Zoya Nabil, started May 22nd. Rebecca Rogan's retirement was effective May 26th. And she was appointed by me to a part-time assistant, part-time available for working on the reference desk in our Saturday rotation and as a sub on call effective June 1st. I would not necessarily need a motion to approve her current rate.
You need a motion for part-time available from the board.
Okay. If you'd like to approve that appointment. I mean, I already signed off on it. I don't think it requires board approval.
We make all the personnel appointments.
Okay.
It's not hard to do.
But I would ask that you approve her current, it's the same hourly rate that she had before. That's the part that I think requires the board's approval of $40.75 in the part-time available position.
And then you will prioritize her last in your part-time availables when you call for people to fill the hours.
It's not a deep PTA list. So last of about 3.
4 now, 3
Yeah.
and 4, I want to
Just
say
because
off
of
the
the-
work chart.
Cost differential.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would ask, I can't ask for a motion, but this would need the board's approval.
Okay. So I will make a motion to authorize our library director to, in his appointment of our now retired head of adult services, Rebecca Rogan, to serve in a part-time available role effective June 1st at the rate of $40.75 per hour, with the clarification that the emphasis or the prioritization will be for the less tenured, lesser hourly rate employees. Is that a reasonable summary? Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Brian Cook's seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Great. Thank you, Bob, for bringing that.
Sure. To continue with my personnel report, I did appoint Denise Minson to be the acting department head. And we've requested the certification of eligible librarian 2s to fill that vacancy. I've been informed that Denise Minson will be reachable on that list. So once I have received the list, I should be able to appoint her or another reachable candidate to the position. And that would likely be approved at the July meeting. In the meantime, we had the resignation of part-time circulation clerk Delara Higgins, effective June 8th.
Forgive me.
Please.
So with respect to Denise Minson, you were going to request a retroactive payment? We're going to table that for July?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Apologies.
No, none needed. Thank you for the explaining that. Due to the acting up nature of the appointment to acting department head, but because I anticipate the permanent appointment to be doable, I thought it would be easiest to wait till July and make the retroactive with the salary increase. Sure. I had just a couple of points of community outreach that I performed. I attended the Friends of the Library meeting on May 10th. I also attended the book sale a couple of times. I came in to be here on a Sunday morning while you cleaned out the book sale, but moreover, I spent $20 and I feel like I got away pretty cheap.
It was a bargain.
For just $20, it was a bargain for what I went home with, but I also, I mean, usually let me put it this way, with most of my own personal library in storage, it was not the right time to go home with an armful of new books, new to me books. And I attended the Young Writers Award reception June 1st in our courtyard. It was an exciting time to see tomorrow's best-selling writers here today. That concludes my director's report.
I'm going to tack on to that. If we can ask Brian, you and Chantel have presented the renewal proposals for the workers' compensation insurance. So we have that motion in the agenda. Brian, would you mind? Sure. Page. Here you go. Read that.
Page 3.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposed workers' compensation policy with Utica presented by the Regan Agency. It's in the packet.
Right. For $10,002 annual. And thank you to Chantel for the work that you did in pressing our insurance agent for multiple proposals and clarification of those proposals. Yeah, so you secured savings for us of, I think, $900, which is excellent. So Brian's made the motion. I second the motion.
So,
Yes, discussion.
so I'm wondering if it's penny wise to pound foolish to save $900 across a year or in 1 year or multiple years?
1 year.
1 year. Only because I know that the staff has used Hanover and I haven't heard any complaints, but I don't know if there's any other conversation that I'm unaware of. I just generally, like, I wouldn't switch their dental coverage if they like it. I wouldn't, so like, that's my ingoing place is if it's not a huge savings. I think Hanover's a bigger company. I think Jen, you did that research for us.
Yeah.
So I just raised that as sort of like a, Bob, does the staff have an inkling that we might be switching? Do they have an opinion?
Well, workers' compensation is for an injury on the job. So it's not something that we expect to have a frequency issue with anyway. So I doubt the staff's gonna be like, this insurer over another. And Regan, one of the points Chantel checked for us was, their reputation for fairness, because for this coverage, that's incredibly important.
We do lean on the agent to help us with that.
Yeah.
So.
And to answer your question, no, there hasn't been either widespread knowledge of this change or demand to retain Hartford or demand to change. I really think this is just an opportunity for the board to save a little money, and I don't see it's a good point to question if we're being pound foolish, but I don't see that as a staff concern.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your report. I think we can move to the committee reports. Brian, did you have anything further from a patient's perspective? I threw you the insurance loop there, sorry. I'll turn to Pam for policy and bylaws.
Sure. The first thing that I'd like to say is that we have passed deleting the blogging policy and the gift policy and the fund balance policy, and that needs to be reflected on the website.
Thank you, Pam.
That was passed. We are awaiting, the board is awaiting back from BSK, our attorneys, on whistleblower circulation,
child safety. And I do believe that the internet policy was also approved at like 2 or 3 board meetings ago, and that also needs to get reflected up on the website. So we've been doing a lot of work, and now it's sitting with our attorneys. I had hoped, and they had said that we would have it back by today's board meeting, but as such, that didn't happen. So, we're continuing, I'm continuing to work with Bob on the display policy.
The exhibit policy, yeah.
And exactly.
You've got a lot underway.
And many of the other policies are also like ALA policies, so they're not necessarily policies for us to really do anything with.
We adopt them.
Right, exactly, like you just, so we're in a good place.
That's great.
We're moving along. We do need to talk about okay, so that's it with policies and moving into bylaws.
If I could ask, Bob, can you work with Pam to give her the assurance that you'll put a process in place? I don't know whether it's Tao or, someone who tracks the minutes to see what changes have been approved by the board in terms of policies, and then make sure that that's implemented on our website.
Yes.
Great.
Thank
Sorry.
you. No, that's good. Thank you. And Bob, whatever you need from me after this meeting, yeah, I can. Just let me know.
Well, it's incumbent upon us to have clear minutes that reflect our actions, right?
Correct. So that's that with policy, and for the bylaws, I'm moving this over from last month's board meeting to approve the petition for amendment of charter to change the Chappaqua Central School District Public Library Charter in the Regents of the University of the State of New York to modify the trustee full term of office from 5 to 3 years to increase accessibility and encourage a greater flow of community members, more fresh eyes, and more people given the opportunity to serve this treasure of our community. That is part 1. Part 2 is approve the resolution of a meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Chappaqua Central School District, reciting the same. Approval of 75% of the board is required. So the feeling behind that is that we're having some difficulty getting people to run because of the 5-year term. And that
we're losing people early.
Because of the 5-year term. So
Well, I'll second the motion, and then let's throw it open to discussion.
Okay, thank you. Discussion's open.
I think it makes sense. Everyone that I've talked to would agree with this change in the community.
So in marketing, we do this thing where we say like, if it were free, and when it's free, of course you want it. So of course a 3-year term is more likely that I'm gonna run for a 3-year term than a 5-year term. But this is a $3.5 million library, and for 100 years, it's been 5-year terms. And the pandemic was, timed with some circumstances. But I don't know that if we looked back in our 100-year history, there wasn't another time and inflection point of similar. And in my entire 5 years here, I have always said less is more. The less you change, the better, because you're only here for 5, and who are you to decide anything longer that isn't necessarily required? I happen to think that the lack of history on the board is a worthy reason to ask for 5 years out of a community member, in the hopes that you would have enough 5-year members to bridge any shorter terms, but that's my personal opinion.
I'm also going to just bring to discussion that I was genuinely shocked by how many people I spoke to about considering to run, and how they felt that 5 years was really too long of a term. And for that,
it's been brought back to the board.
I also attended the League of Women Voters meeting. George Benak attended that as well. And Jane Shepherdson as president of the Board of Education. And because they were speaking to the openings they had for their board as we were doing for the library. And their terms are 3 years. They agreed with us that this proposal, could make a lot of sense in terms of driving more community participation.
Well, as someone who just
Yes.
got elected and has said nothing tonight,
Right.
I am sympathetic to Liz's observation about institutional memory and the fact that over the last several years, there has been a lot of turnover on this board. And perhaps those are two separate issues, right? There's the issue over stability of the board, and there's the issue over the length of the term. So I wonder whether or not there are other factors that are leading people not to run. And hypothetical question, where will we be 2 years from now when we have hypothetically reduced the term to 3 years and we still are facing the same problem we're facing in the spring of 2022? I would have, just personally speaking, I would have run for this seat if it were 1 or 5 years. I have made a personal choice in my mind to serve the community, and the number wasn't going to be a deciding factor, although I understand, Pam, that other people have said other things to you, so. Yeah.
Okay. The other thing I should add, and I'm sorry I didn't include it in the board packet, is I did survey Westchester libraries in terms of where their bylaws were publicly locatable in terms of the tenure. And there were many at 5, there are many at 3. So we can share that document as a follow-up.
Just to bring up or further on your comment on institutional memory, it doesn't preclude someone from running again also.
Agreed, agreed, yeah. Right, and institutional memory is always a problem on boards when you don't have, yeah, agreed.
Okay, let's take a vote. All in favor? Aye. John. Okay, not in favor? Abstaining? Okay, great. We will table the motion.
Or the motion that did not pass.
Yep.
Another motion, or is that one?
Okay. And was the sexual harassment policy? Are we presenting that? It's in our board packet.
Then we are.
Yeah.
Okay, then we are. It's in the board packet.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm having a moment.
No.
Okay, so I make a motion to pass the sexual harassment policy.
With an updated policy that's been reviewed by council and it's in.
See it up there earlier today.
I don't think it's.
It is.
I'm 99% sure it's not up there, because I would have.
I gave it
Yeah.
to.
Chantel, I apologize. Do you recall?
It's not there.
Yeah.
It's a million times good.
No. Okay. So
Okay,
we have the documents.
So we have it, it'll go into
the next
board
board
meeting.
packet, and that will include the current policy, which is from October 16th, 2018.
Yeah.
The proposed policy, which has been reviewed by council. And I should clarify that this policy is strictly dictated by New York State.
Correct.
And we've also prepared a red line document that contrast the proposed changes against the current policy. Okay, so
At some prior point, we did have full compliance with 100% of our staff having taken the mandated training, and I'm assuming that we're still maintaining that as new staff come on board,
Yes,
you're making sure that's happening.
Yeah,
Okay,
yes, and I'm making sure that's happening with the appointment.
excellent,
Okay.
awesome. Yes,
good point.
Pam.
Okay, great. All right, moving to building and grounds. Okay, I have a motion, I move that the board approve the director to engage EDR, an electrical consultancy firm for $4,500. It's a one-off cost for the design and construction administration for the replacement of, it's generously termed, the penthouse power panel board by a qualified electrician following an RFP as recommended by our facilities consultant. Do I have a second? Brian? Thank you. So for discussion, to add a bit to that, we have a 50-year-old electrical panel that is so ancient. The electrician is struggling to keep it current, no pun intended, and involves, we've actually got a picture in our presentation, involves hanging new switchboards, basically all around it, as if in a possum carrying children. So we need to update that. Our facilities consultant wanted an expert to weigh in on the specs so that we can obtain the best proposal via RFP. And that is the cost presented here. Any thoughts from the group?
The proposal seems reasonable given what.
So the new one will it'll have extra capacity. Yes.
Yes, and a greater lifetime projection.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you and I have seen the one that we have, and I'm in favor of this proposal. I just I want to highlight that this is done with forethought, thinking ahead to make sure we're prepared. So that instead of having the tack-ons on the outside, the unit can expand with us if need be, right?
Exactly. And we're working to make sure that we're bringing the expertise, because keep in mind, this is basically for preparation for an RFP. This isn't an actual RFP. The RFP will be the next step that Bob will undertake with Bill Link to engage a variety of electricians to bid on the project of replacing this panel, which will be expensive. We projected a cost in our presentation, which I don't remember off the top of my head. Do you?
I do not.
Not cheap.
Not cheap. I want to say potentially oh, here I've got it. Sorry. Potentially $30,000. Yeah. Substantial. And that was a rough guess. Yeah, $30,000 was viewed as the high end for that unavoidable RFP. But hopefully the specs of this consultancy proposal will help us make sure that we're getting the best result from that RFP. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay. I've got one more proposal. Our facilities consultant is struggling we spoke earlier this evening about the importance of screen. Our last screen from 1977 has expired and been cut down since it would no longer re-roll. And frankly, they've struggled to get an expert here who can provide us with alternatives. We've got programming that's looming, as Joan mentioned, as Bob has mentioned previously. And Bob has asked that we approve basically emergency appropriation. I sought the estimate of sort of worst case from our facilities consultant. He's estimated 25,000. This would enable Bob to act quickly and with potentially without RFP if timing does not permit.
Well, so if we were gonna, so on the low end, you can buy a screen that folds down for $2,000. But what you're talking about is really what we would want the library to purchase.
Which is what we had before. Why don't we second? We'll move into discussion. Do you want to second?
I'd rather know.
Okay, the second doesn't mean
I'll
approval.
second.
It just means we're
John
moving
is
to discussion.
Second,
Thank you.
that's nice, that's a good place.
Okay, great.
to Come in on the conversation.
Yeah.
Um,
So now discussion.
So, sorry, thank you for keeping us procedurally in line. So I have a little bit of a concern if we, like, because if in an emergency, I would say you're buying a $2,000 one just to get us up and running, and then we're gonna give that to some other organization a year from now when we get our real one. So that would be like the emergency model. If it's not an emergency, we're actually going out and looking for the $25,000 one, then that's a different conversation, and I don't think we would want to do that. So I just don't know where we're kind of, what we're trying to do.
Well, I wouldn't want to spend $2,000 now if a new screen is gonna be purchased anyway. So you're talking about trying to make sure that a really expensive screen goes through the competitive bid process in order to save $2,000. It's like, where are we trying to save? On either side, it seems like it's likely to be the same amount. Does that make sense?
No, I guess when I did a quick cursory glance, like if it was an emergency, I would buy like I said, the $1,600 one.
Right.
Because it's a no-brainer, easy solution. It goes up, it's done, right? And then we can do programming tomorrow.
Is it large enough?
Yeah, I'm picturing the
receive.
kind that schools use with where it's on a stick, basically, and it
Mhm.
rolls down, right?
That's not gonna be large enough.
They've ceiling mount, it's a Google search, but at any rate, but the question is at what point, where do we, because I think you're saying you want to buy the permanent one, but if you're gonna buy the permanent one, then we shouldn't make an emergency and it should be factored in because there's a lot of variety in terms of what the permanent one would be. Now, I could throw another thing in here that if we wanted, we could buy like an inflatable one that gives us much more utility and flexibility. And then that has, longer term, we can use it, or we can even rent it as a circulating item if we want it, we could do anything. That might be a better in between. I don't know, but I'm sort of uncomfortable giving you a blanket to buy anything without any specs for what we're actually using it for and whether it should be light permeable or not, because do we want people to stand behind it or not,
Yeah, so I'll try to answer your question. The large ticket item and the reason that in the dollar amount that Jen just proposed would be intended to be the permanent replacement on an emergency purchase basis. That would be the intent. If you're saying that you have a preference to have the emergency purchase just be a temporary need, that's a very reasonable approach as well. But I just think that
And potentially within your threshold, right?
potentially, but then you're spending money to try to save money elsewhere. It's just either way, we're going to be spending money.
spend 25 grand ahead of when you know what equipment's back there and whether it integrates with your 25 grand up front.
Okay.
You could be making a 25 grand mistake, but that's where it's either an emergency or it's not. I don't think an emergency is a $25,000 purchase.
Okay. It's a good point. I don't know that I have a response. I mean, we'll
Right.
proceed how the board authorizes.
I think it would be great to get a temporary solution in. Before,
That
but
we could repurpose.
that, oh, absolutely to repurpose or, right, just to even to continue to use, whether, you know,
The
okay.
last screen has been here for 45 years, so I don't think we should rush under an emergency decision.
Right, what's our next, remind me again, what is our next most urgent?
Our next most
programming?
urgent programming needs is the summer reading program usually has done children's movies.
Okay,
And we would like to have a screen in place by then. So it would, I was aiming, you know, for the full screen effect. But Robin, do you mind me asking, would you be able to get the summer reading program with an inflatable or
Otherwise temporary.
temporary emergency purchase?
We've already started investigating the inflatable screens, so we have a few logistical questions about it. We need to determine how easy it is to recalibrate our projector to allow it to actually project onto that screen specifically in the right size.
We have a portable one that we would use.
a portable,
But that, then we have the issue of what is available for us to play with that.
It'd be
projector.
18.
Okay,
So yes, that is something that we're looking into. And we're definitely open to that as a solution. I can't answer definitively that it will work yet, but
Okay,
I mean,
so-
I got that today, so.
the answer to your question, Liz, is yes, we could try to make do with a temporary screen in the meantime in order to include the permanent screen in the AV RFP.
That makes sense.
I think right, and we could also act on it quicker for the children, to meet the immediate needs.
Right, because then they can start planning against what they're actually gonna have, because we can actually tomorrow pick something for them.
I'm just looking at the projector, I'm not staring
I
into the
have the
space.
full-on old school metal ones that the screen comes up, but it's not big.
okay. Then we will not proceed with that motion. Do we have, and Bob, you'll come back to us if you need a special meeting to approve a cost for a temporary screen. I have no idea what the budget is for those sort of.
Liz seems to be certain that there are some for less than 2,000. That's all I need.
I mean, you know, you guys will have to figure out whether that meets our needs in the short term or not, and I mean, your staff is super confident, and I'm sure if that solution doesn't work and we need to spend over your threshold, then, you know, we're at your service.
Bob, I'll check in with you tomorrow. I might have someone who can help us figure out what
Oh,
the
great.
solution could be.
The other thing is, Grafflin has a pull down on their stage. We might just check with them and say, hey, are you still using that? Are you done with it for the year? Can we put it up here? You know, I don't know.
For the summer, yeah.
You never know. They might be like a day away from taking it down. So I would try to make an attempt with the school district to say, do you have any equipment you're not using that could fill this need for us? And the town, I don't know what they use for their outdoor movies in the summer. They probably hire a company, never mind. Yeah. Figured.
Okay, communications, Pam, we're running way late. Anything to add with respect to communications at this point? No. Okay, and Bob, you talked about 2 proposals from personnel. Are we tabling both for July?
Yes.
Okay, we'll address both at our July meeting. Excellent. Anything else from a personnel perspective? Okay, any further motions or items for discussion amongst the group? Okay, do we have any public comments, Chantel?
No.
So next steps, we agreed we were going to set a special meeting for July. We had previously targeted Thursdays at 12:30 because of a prior board member. That was the driver for that day and time. At the same time, it worked. Not knowing John's schedule, should we stick to that? Thursday at 12:30, date to be determined, so we're,
This coming Thursday, the 15th.
no,
It would be July 13th.
yeah,
The 13th, I won't be here.
okay.
I can do the 6th or the 20th, or you can do it without me.
The 20th works for me.
Okay. You want to have it before the board meeting, right? Yeah, ideally it'd be before the meeting on the 17th. Does that work for you, John?
What day, I'm sorry?
July 6th,
July 6th works.
12:30, works for everyone? Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you for letting us get that done. We'll set our target for our next board packet of July 12th. We're all going to work with Bob and Chantel to make that happen. And we'll also target for July, we'll work with George to figure out, likely if he can attend the July special meeting. That would probably be the time to swear him in, rather than wait to the regular meeting. Okay, next meetings, as we've been talking about, are Monday, July 17th at 7 p.m. here in the theater. The special meeting we've just ascertained. So with that, I move that the board adjourn the public meeting at 9:54 p.m. Before I get a second on that, I apologize to my colleagues and the public as well for this running so late. I think the lesson learned is that we will hold our very important performance discussions with our library director in special meetings so that these meetings don't run so late. Okay, sorry for being so long-winded. Do I have a second?
Before we.
Yeah.
Just want to say.
Oh, forgive me. Thank you.
For your last meeting.
Thank you.
Oh, no. 9:55
I know.
and
I'm tired of not
really-
even thinking straight. I apologize.
I can't in good conscience seek more than a minute, but I will say that when Ellen Adnapose walked out and I walked in, I had no idea what the 5 years would hold. None of us did. We had a pandemic. We had directors come and go, and it's been an eventful 5 years, and I have not enjoyed every minute, but I have enjoyed the majority of the minutes, and I have been really, it's been an honor and a privilege to serve our community and to have the opportunity to help with the library and to help the librarians. And I wish all of you the best of luck continuing the long, healthy tradition of this library.
Thank you.
We look forward to leaning on you for future committee work and other historical questions that we need answered.
And we know the devotion you have to libraries philosophically, and very much appreciate the time that you've devoted, and brought to the table for the community and for this library.
Thank you, Jen.
Okay. Thank you for, every one of you reminded me, thank you. Do we have a second for adjournment at this point?
Second.
Okay, John's seconded. All in favor? Aye. Aye, unanimous. Great.